So I was saying that David was from Miami, Atiba is from Orlando, and certainly, um, not the least, but the number three, Tim Chapman is a friend that is from Gullah Geechee land of Georgetown, South Carolina. Some of you may know Georgetown. It's about 30 minutes south of Georgetown. It's about 30 minutes south of Myrtle Beach and about an hour north of Charleston, South Carolina. So again, I welcome you, brothers. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to talk today about sustainable gardening in South Florida, Central Florida, and Low Country, South Carolina. Today we're going to start with my introduction of David. David Michael Roper is the president of the Green Haven Project. He was born and raised in Brooklyn, in New York, and in 2019, he formed the Green Haven Project. It's a community-based organization that provides a haven for school-age youth. He established it to create community gardens and sustainable ecosystems in areas predominantly known as food deserts. He's a strong believer in paying forward. He feeds the homeless and he hosts youth events. One thing that I found interesting when I first met him about a half a year ago, we met down in Miami at the historic Hampton House. And I noticed that he had these incredible teeth and he had these incredible eyes. And I was like, he looks a little different. Who is this brother and what is he about? And I found out that he's known as the King of Jedi because he loves all things Star Wars. So I bring to you now David Michael Roper, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the Green Haven Project in Miami Beach. Thank you so much. David?
Thank you. Thank you for having me and the rest of the brothers on this live stream. The work that we're doing, because it is definitely much needed, especially in these times for our people. So I just want to say, I appreciate y'all brothers, man. Salute to what y'all doing first and foremost, wherever y'all may be at, because once again, our people definitely need it. But other than that, yeah, I'm basically one of the founders of an organization called the Green Haven Project, and we basically, teach people how to grow food in our communities, and all the fresh produce that we grow, we give it back to the community for free. We don't charge anybody anything to come and learn or come get fresh produce, because most of our areas anyway is considered food deserts. So what I look like charging people that don't even have the option, for and to get nutritional food if they wanted to, most of the time they got to go outside, and matter of fact, let me backtrack that. Most of the time we got to go outside to go and get, fruits and vegetables if we wanted them fresh, not GMOs, which is genetically modified organisms, which is a term that Monsanto came up with. You know what I'm saying? They've pretty much been banned in 30 different countries, and of course America's not one of them. That's a whole nother story. And we just literally have to, create solutions instead of problems. So, instead of talking about the problem. So my solution was, instead of giving them a fish, teach them how to fish, you know what I'm saying? And give them the fish in the process as well, too. There's no vegan options in our neighborhoods. There's no Whole Foods. There's no, vegan yellow markets and so on and so forth. Most of the time you got to go once again outside of your area for those things. And what we get, of course, is processed food, liquor stores, corner stores, fast food joints. And none of it is healthy for our people. I mean, yeah, that could be your choice to eat that kind of stuff if you wanted to. But then for the most part, most of us don't even know that there's a whole other choice and option that exists if you knew what you was doing, and and begin to learn and understand where the food is coming from. I mean, right now there's a food shortage going on, across the world, and a lot of people gonna be out of water. Okay, hello.
We're still here.
Word.
Sorry about that. That was me.
What was
My
that?
apologies. my fault. My apologies. Keep going, Dave.
Word. Message. But yeah, that's what it is, man. That's what I do. We educate, people on the land that we're currently on in Overtown, and we also give the history behind what Overtown was to Black people. They said, um, Overtown was the Harlem of the South. You know what I'm saying? So, like, there's a lot of history behind that space, and of course, just like anywhere else, they're trying to colonize it. So, man, it's a rough battle, but like I said, instead of complaining about the problems, we just create solutions, and that's one of them.
Thank you so much, David. We appreciate hearing from you, and we're going to hear a little bit more from you in a minute. Next, I'd like to bring on Brother Atiba Martin. Atiba was drawn to growing food approximately when he was 8 years old. It was born out of his desire to understand his relationship with the universe, himself, and everything within it. Sounds like a scientist to me. He also wanted to create something that would benefit his family, physically, emotionally, and spiritually for generations to come. Atiba currently works in the tech field, and he's studying to become a network engineer. He's currently developing ideas and products based on his gardening, growing experiences that can benefit the community. You can also find his music on all streaming platforms by searching for his artist names, Atiba and Hamali. His gardening channel can be found on YouTube by going to mymindfulgarden.com and clicking on his YouTube link. I bring you Atiba from Orlando, Central Florida. Thank you, Atiba.
Thank you. Peace and love and much respect to everyone here today. Greatly appreciate being on this platform with all of you. It was about 8 years ago, actually. I got really into gardening, and I think what led to it was just self-analysis, looking into the self and wondering who I really, like you read all these books about, Africa, and I grew up in Jamaica, families from Jamaica, and I definitely have a Yoruba name, and just the idea of self and everything here and there was just conditioned by European standards, and from my God to everything else, food, everything else was just decided for me. And so I was going through my own little crisis and just stood in front of the land that my family has, and was like, if our ancestors used that to study that nature and the stars and everything else to build, and ended up building pyramids, then I can only imagine the pyramid I'll build in myself, the unfolding of my own consciousness and being. So it started as that, and then just the idea of my family, my sister, my niece and nephew, my parents, having a place to go and pick and eat fresh food. And then it grew. I would post on Instagram and Facebook, and I stopped at one point, and a few people contacted me and said, hey, I've never grown food, but I've grown food because of you, or I watched the post and they do something for me. So from that point on, I kept posting and doing and learning and reading. And so my process right now is just figuring out processes that work here in the city that I'm in, what grows well, how to create educational material, or creating educational material to share via the YouTube channel, and inspire people to grow food. And like David was saying, everything we consume is programming, for the cells in our body. Same thing with the plants. Everything you pour on them or around them, or everything that happens to them as far as like, cold and heat and so on, is programming. It affects them in some way. And so, our food, just like anything we watch or read, the food is important too, because it speaks directly to our cells. So like, taking care of the soil, using the right kind of water, or how to, set water out so the chemicals leach out of it. Like, finding plants that help to benefit other plants to grow, like legumes or nitrogen fixing plants. So, my whole thing right now is experimenting, but where I'd love to go to is what David's doing to replicate, ideas like that for communities here, for people who look like me, young boys and girls to pick it up. And, I was inspired by my grandfather and my father, and that was years ago. And I only knew to, like, we lived in Brooklyn, and we had this little patch. Jamaicans, you get a little dirt, and they'll find seeds, and they'll grow color, little cucumber, everything. You know what I mean? So, they grew anything and everything. You know what I mean? And they appreciated eating from the land. So, I'm here to build community, to offer any, information as far as anything I've learned over time and through experimenting. And I'm greatly appreciative of being here.
Thank you so much, Atiba. And now we're going to hear from Tim. Let me tell you a little bit about Tim. Tim Chapman is a local gardening consultant who promotes and teaches smart gardening using sustainable Gullah Geechee principles passed on from his mother, as well as principles that he's learned as a master gardener. I bring to you Tim Chapman. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Ramona, and good evening to David and Atiba. And I apologize because nobody told me the dress code, but I do wear a baseball cap like I see you. and that lets me know that you guys are authentic. You got to have a ball cap on. But all I'm doing is sharing what I've always enjoyed doing. I started learning gardening from my mother probably around as early as I could remember, probably around age 8, where, I would get my seeds from her and she would give me my own little plot of land. But my mother is from the Gullah region in the Low Country, McClellanville. She was born on a small farm there. My grandparents were farmers. And as far as I can remember, that's how we ate. Growing up in Georgetown, which is called the city compared to where McClellanville is, which was always the country for us. But in the city, we were not rich here. We were just as poor as the rest of the people here in the city of Georgetown. But we were rich because we always had food. My grandparents did everything on the farm. They did chickens, pigs, ducks, geese. They had a mule. They had cows. So I grew up in that setting, planting those fields, picking beans and tomatoes, cucumber, squash. But where the migration to the north came to the south and everybody fled the fields, somehow I didn't get the email. I just fell in love with the earth. And because of that love, I've always been growing gardens and learning, like Atiba, like you said, I wanted to learn why did these things grow? And, we all were big fans of the almanac. That's how all the old timers grew everything. Everything on the farm was done according to the almanac. It had the calendar, when to set eggs, when to cut pigs, when to separate vegetables, when to set it out. And those moon signs, I learned that those were the key. But again, why did that work? So I studied the science. And once I learned the science on why things worked the way they did, then I was able to share that with other folks as well. So my mission is always been to show people that, hey, you could be growing your own food. The popular phrase, food, garden to table, farm to table. Well, that's been my whole life. I don't think I've bought an onion in over 20 years.
Wow.
And, I'm still with a family, brothers and sisters. We still jar tomatoes, peaches, beans. We still do that kind of stuff. One sister still raise chickens, so we get our fresh eggs. But sharing what I know about gardening, we're still using those same Geechee principles. They still work. and from our slave days, we brought that knowledge here. We've learned a lot of things since we got here, and we learned about some other ways to do things. We also Native Americans in this region. We learned some things from them as well. You guys down in Florida, the Seminole tribe, and you've learned a lot of things as we migrated to those areas. You learned a lot from Native Americans, so I always give them credit for a lot of things that we do. In fact, one interesting project that I did in my garden this season was to grow an okra called a choppy okra. Ramona, you might remember this an area in Georgetown County, the choppy area. Well, there was an okra growing out there for the past 40 years. We kind of lost track of it, but it was the predominant species grown in that area. And we knew about it, but we could not find seeds. Well, we are lucky enough to get some seeds a year ago. We produced this okra this past year. It is a delicious variety of okra, unlike any that I've ever tasted. And of course, we've made a ton of seeds so we could share with the gardeners. But my love of gardening, again, I'm just trying to share that with as many people as I can. I believe that everyone should be growing something. And when we're talking urban garden, my mother had always grown vegetables in her flower beds. Even though we had areas that we can do vegetable plots, she would grow it in those beds as well to make it more convenient. And in my teaching, some of my workshops, I stress raised bed style of gardening, and I show them how to garden in containers where you can get those flower pots, grow bags, whatever receptacle you can come up with, you should be able to grow. Once you learn the principles of soil science, once you grasp the healthy soils, you can grow it. And I always tell people, I can grow it on top of asphalt if that's all I had, because I understand what the soil needs. You guys are in a similar region. We're getting close to zone 9, where most of you are in. We're zone 8. But due to climate control, we're getting closer to your type of climate. And we're starting to experiment with a lot of plants that you can grow down in Florida. We're starting to experiment with those species as well up here in Georgetown, in the low country, so that we can expand the horizons for most folks. We're getting a lot of snowbirds that's coming here, and we got some halfbackers, we call them, coming from Florida, but they don't want to go completely back to the north, so they're settling in areas like South Carolina, lower regions of North Carolina, and they're bringing some new techniques, some new tastes. We're seeing a lot of variety of vegetables. And Atiba, we're working with a lot of African plants now. We're trying to see what some of those species we can grow in this region, and just introduce people to the different variety of vegetables that they can grow. Again, sustainable methods that we're using only means that if it worked 100, 200 years ago, it is still working today. So that's pretty much what I'm trying to do here in the low country.
Hey Tim, I definitely want to do some seed swapping, man. I get that choppy okra.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll purchase some. I don't mind. However, definitely.
We'll share. We share. You know how we gardeners and farmers do. We share. We don't.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. Thank you. Wow. Everybody's doing some really interesting things. When I wanted to talk a little bit, I didn't share any questions, prior to, because I figured that the questions I asked, you all had answers and you didn't need to know anything about, before. But I'm curious to know, in terms of what is the protocol for getting involved, the affordability, the time commitment, etc. I mean, I know people that say, "Oh, I can't garden because I don't have time to pick weeds," for example. I mean, how do you manage the time commitment and so forth? And what do we need to get involved if we want to do something like this? And this is for anybody that'd like to answer. You could just unmute yourself if I've muted you, or if you you could just unmute yourself and feel free to answer anyone.
Like, for me, how was it? Just looking at society and looking at like I said, figuring out my place in the world as well and my relationship to everything else. I think it just comes to a point where you just you have to make the time for it, and so I think a lot of folks are focused on wanting to have and feel have better foods and feel better, and they know that growing food aids in that process as well. So yeah, I think as far as time, you can manage your time, whether it's early morning or weekends. You can if there are many people in the home, you could say, all right, this person has responsibility of watering at this time, or so on and so forth. But it's all doable, whether you have a balcony garden or you have an acre lot, half acre, or just something with just the smallest amount of land. You can do it. It's worth taking the time to, and because of the benefit of it, how it benefits your life and your well-being and of those around you as well. So as far as like monetarily, it can get like I get into it sometimes where I'm like, I want exotic fruit trees, and like I'm growing things now that usually grow in Miami, like breadfruit and soursop, that never usually would grow. It wouldn't grow well here in Orlando. And so same thing with that Tim was mentioning. We're the ability to grow more subtropical items. So those costs to find them. And so you can end up spending a good amount of money and a good amount of time taking care of them and getting consumed with learning. But I think regardless how much time you spend, it's a benefit for you. You know what I mean? Ultimately, in the long run, a great benefit. So, just a few hours out of the week and a few dollars to start with, especially if you start small with tomatoes or something to that extent. And, try and stay as organic as possible. Sometimes the soil might cost more, but you can also make your own soil, which, Tim mentioned something pertaining to that earlier.
Would someone else like to respond to that question?
Yeah, just I agree with everything Atiba said. We're passionate about what we do. So I don't know how you guys feel about it, but there's not enough time for me to be in the garden. I can be out there all day long. There's always something to do in the garden. But when I work with groups, community garden, kids garden, or I do some classroom instruction, I always stress the raised bed techniques, which would apply to containers as well, and mostly your urban gardening. You're going to be dealing with small spaces. I'm actually working with some big farmers now, trying to introduce some of the urban principles to them, because the soil is very important. And with the raised beds and containers, you can actually create that growing medium to where you want. And also you're containing that space. So for me to go in my garden, and my garden is like 52 square feet, but it's all raised beds, walking paths. But I use every space that I have. But I can go in that garden and my weeding can be done in 2 hours. Because I'm walking through that garden. I've got these raised beds. I'm trying to grow vegetables, not so much as growing weeds. But again, a weed is just a plant out of place. What we call a weed here, you research, somebody's eating that somewhere else. So, and Atiba, I'm learning every day. So we actually made some seasonings out of a dollar weed this past season, because we learned that the plant is edible. So we actually had a young lady dried them and poulticed that down into a powder, and she blended seasoning, which I rubbed some chicken wings, and it was excellent. Now, this is a weed that I've been trying to get rid of all my life. Now I'm going to start cultivating that thing, but just growing those small spaces, working with that soil, getting your soil right, building your own planting medium, you're going to control a lot of that weeding that used to be the problem in gardens growing up. That's why a lot of our people wrote off gardening and said, I will never return to the South and do that backbreaking work. So, and that's why I call my gardening smart gardening. I would show them those smart techniques that I've learned over the years.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Tim. What about in Overtown? Are you working predominantly with children, David, in Overtown?
Yeah, so at this point, pretty much what's happening is, because due to the fact that we've been there for like the last 3.5 years, it's more of like any and everybody, whoever comes to us, that's who we teach. If you want to learn, it's there to learn. My journey was a little bit different from you guys, but I found it. I found the path, and how I started doing it was Google and YouTube. You know what I'm saying? That's how I learned. And with the information that people around me had, I just learned off of them. I sat down home myself and listened. You know what I'm saying? And we had a few years ago 2 acres that was basically donated to me and my partner in crime when it comes to doing what we do. We were teaching at the Overtown Youth Center the same thing with another organization. And then I got a phone call one day asking to take a look at the space that we're at now. And I was like, yo, let's make it happen, and for the most part, we just tapped in with the people in the community. You know what I'm saying? We tapped in with the people in the community and asked them what they wanted us to grow, what they wanted to see in that area. You know what I'm saying? Before we even did anything, because none of us are from Overtown. So for me, it's like, yo, we got to check in. You know what I'm saying? We got to check in with the people. We just can't come like outsiders and expect to, do this thing and then have it flourish and have people interested in it, because, yo, excuse my friend, but you got to make the shit look cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, people got to be wanting, you got to get people excited. People got to want to do it, and I feel that we haven't had an issue with that because you got to stay hip, I guess, say, speak the language. I don't know. It's crazy how like, once you tie something in, and I think this is one of the major keys to us being successful too in that area is like, once you emerge it and you make them feel that like it should be something they know that is and it's important that they know it and they're like connected to it. That has been like the most successful part for me. Them like tying it into history, tying it into, like the brother said, back in the day with our ancestors and so on and so forth. A lot of our people don't know our history. They don't know their background. You ask the average Black person, you know what I'm saying, where they come from, they could not tell you. Meanwhile, in every other race, you know what I'm saying, them white folk gonna know they came from a mountain or there was a Viking or whatever, or your great grandfather did that. Same thing with Hispanic folks. It's the same thing, So it's like when you find out that, your ancestors there was Black women that bought seeds in their braids, you know what I'm saying, in their dreads. They would wrap seeds and then, plant it and stuff. So it's just one of those things where it's like, for me, once again, I just feel that when you learn it and I still have a lot to learn, because I don't know everything about gardening. I'm learning as I go, and it's a beautiful thing when, you talk to the kids about it and then they see like a plant, something that they put in the ground grow right before their eyes, that gives them motivation, so yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's a good thing, man. Like, we at this point, I was like, man, I just be doing my thing. And, we've watched over the course of time too, a lot of the children in that neighborhood grow because we used to work at the youth center. So it's like, we grow with them as us being a part of the neighborhood, and then we also do food distributions as well within the area. We team up with other nonprofit organizations and feed the people. We have plant days where when we, set a time and a date to plant everything, we just don't plant it ourselves. We plant it as a collective with the community, so we'll tell everybody to come out. We'll rent a bounce house for the kids. We'll rent a game truck for the young adults. We'll have food, plant-based. And then, we'll knock on the doors. We'll also have groceries as well for the community, you know what I'm saying? And then, we'll let everybody know, and whoever is out there, slide, and then that's it. Make them want to be a part of it, you know what I'm saying? Because they are a part of it. It's our community, you know what I'm saying? I always say all the time that, we all we got, and that's real shit. You know what I'm saying? We all we got, man. These people ain't coming to help us. We better learn how to, do what we got to do, to survive, because this ain't a joke. You know what I'm saying? Like, people gonna starve, if things go wrong, so we don't sugarcoat anything. You know what I'm saying? We tell them like it is. And I tell people all the time, just look it up right then and there. Like, look up what I'm saying. Don't just, listen to what I'm saying. Look it up. You got a phone. That phone, I tell the youth, like, yo, this phone could be your best friend or your worst enemy. You know what I'm saying? It's all on what you put in it. You know what I'm saying? And I tell folks all the time, they're like, oh, how you learn to do this? I'm like, Google and YouTube. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is the information age, because we're not going to have these phones for long. They're already talking about a cyber pandemic. Look that up when you get a chance. For anybody listening right now, look up cyber pandemic. You know what I'm saying? They did a coronavirus test back in 2019, and they said it was inevitable that it was going to go down. Look up cyber pandemic. You know what I'm saying? And you'll see what come out of that. But yeah, man.
Okay, thank you, David. Go ahead, Tim.
Ramona, if I'm David, what you led in with getting the groups involved, that's been one of the biggest hurdles in my area. When I work with folks, they'll say, Tim, we want to do a community garden. Well, from my experience, I've learned that normally when that person called me to do a community garden, they're going to be the one doing the community garden, because nobody else knows about it. And I tell them now, when you get your group of folks together that's going to work this garden, give me a call, and then I will come and speak to the group. Because in most cases, in my experience, they start the project and nobody is interested in working it. And again, I mean, we're in the South, we're in the low country. Folks said, hey, I don't do sun, I don't do grass. And you can't get them out there to work those gardens, and they're stuck. The poor people who thought this was a great idea, they're stuck out there trying to plant this garden by themselves. And they take on huge projects. And that's why I always tell people, I don't care what kind of garden you have, start small and then grow with the garden. But that was good what you said about getting the folks involved, because I'm seeing instances where they come to the garden and they see eggplant for the first time. What is that? I'm still meeting Black folks that has never seen broccoli. They've eaten it, but they don't know where it came from. And then when they see it and they get that main crown out of there, and I go back and they'll call me back and say, Tim, what are all these little things growing, these little florets? And I'm telling them that's the best part. I love that part of the broccoli, but I also let them know you can also eat the leaves on that broccoli. They don't know that, or they see zucchini for the first time. So trying to introduce them to that, and working with the food bank, and I agree with everything you said. We're going to come to a point where this really is going to be a food desert. And the food bank, we're only getting that food because the government is finding a way for farmers to still get paid. Remember, the pandemic came and restaurants closed. Farmers didn't have an outlet for all this crop that they were making. And we're really blessed in this country. We outproduce anybody else as far as making food. We make so much, the government buys so much of this stuff every year just to keep our farmers going. We ship some to some countries, and some countries we decide, well, we're going to let them starve. We don't ship anything to them. I don't believe anybody should be starving. You guys are blessed with South Carolina as well as South Carolina. Every time I see a country club or golf course, I just look out and say, wow, look at that prime planting land out there. I can grow so much corn out there or beans, but they want to play golf and they spend billions of dollars. But yet around us, we watch people starve and say we're in a food desert. But I commend you for what you did as far as getting your group involved, buying into what you're doing. That has been a sticking point of what I've seen in my area, getting enough folks that's willing to get out there. We started a major project, and thanks to my two sisters and my oldest brother, that community garden would have been dead years ago. We started that project in 2012. They still, because they're in the community, they still work that plot, and they make sure that the seniors get fresh vegetables every season. We're blessed, as well as you guys in your area. We're blessed with a long growing season. You guys actually have 2, almost 3 seasons that you can do in your area. That's something I've never experienced. I wouldn't know how to plant corn twice a season, but you guys can do it in your area. So I commend you for what you're doing with your project.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about gender roles as it connects to men and gardening, and particularly how those of you that are working with young people, does that come up ever? Like, do you ever hear, anybody talk about, well, gardening is something that women do, or men can lug the dirt, but I'm just curious. I'm just, that was one of my questions I was thinking about earlier, because it was interesting when I was trying to get this panel together that I ended up, getting you brothers to participate. And I was looking for some women, but somehow it hasn't happened yet. But so I'm just curious to know, particularly those of you working with younger people, does that ever come up as an issue? Like, do you find young males that are not interested, or they may be interested because you are a role model for them? So just curious. David? Oh, okay, you're back. Okay.
Well, in my practice, what I'm doing, when I do classes, workshops, yes, the group is predominantly female. This past season, I did have a couple of older men attended the classes, but just in my research, that's when we grew the rice and everything. That's who did that provision plot, or that backyard garden or kitchen garden, whatever you want to call it. Women were the ones who did that. They did most of the rice. Men would certainly work that field and get it ready, but it was always the women folk. And you can research back and you can see those slave ships, those slaves that came in, they would be proportioned more women to males, because the women played that vital role. They were the ones that knew how to thrash that rice, and they could work that pestle and mortars to where that rice would not crack, because that whole long grain rice was money to those plantations. But our women knew how to do that. They just had that touch, and they were the ones that knew how to cook that rice, as well as most of our food. So they played a very important role. It's no accident that I learned how to plant from my mother. My daddy couldn't grow grass. He was a good man, but he couldn't grow grass and he couldn't cook. So, we credit our mother for teaching us all these good gardening tips. But even in when I'm teaching kids, it's normally those young girls that take to gardening. I can put a bug in my hand and teach them about insects, beneficials, as well as what's bad. And it's always the little girls that will gravitate to it and say, ooh, let me hold it. And it's the boys that are the ones that's going to be squeamish. which I don't understand. I mean, I grew up with a crowd. We went and hunted little baby snakes, but I mean, it was a different time. But they're the ones that's always squeamish, and the little girls are the bolder ones, and they're always the ones that want to learn more. But I'd like to see some young boys come up and learn this. Now, when you get into the business, I'm down here with Clemson University. They're the ones that's dominating the forestry industry, the agribusiness programs. They're the ones that's thriving. They thrive more on the marketing of agriculture, so to speak. But again, nothing has changed in that setting. It's always been the white males that went to the marketing. But even in that side, I'm not seeing a lot of African Americans going into those fields, which is a shame because it's just as lucrative as anything else.
Gotcha. You mentioned earlier, Tim, that South Carolina is getting warmer.
Yes.
Is that so? So that means that now in November, yeah, because I was in DC a few weeks ago. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be colder, and it wasn't. It was in the 60s. So it's like, yep, it's definitely changing.
Yeah.
With that in mind, how has soil changed? What do you have to do for your soil needs? And this is a question for anybody.
Yeah, well, our soils are traditionally poor in this area because of the climate. We get the hot, muggy temperatures. Well, as you guys down in Florida, we get it hot and muggy. We can go through periods of drought, and then we can go through periods where it rains and you just can't turn it off. And because of that, our soils are leached out constantly, which is why our folks always mounded things up in the garden. And I learned from experience when I first started, I would plant things flat, and my mom would just shake her head and say, son, you got to put that thing on a hill. And it took me a while to understand why they were doing that. You had to do that to withstand those monsoon rains that we would get, but you would also hold in that moisture and keep in those nutrients. And then certain time of year, twice a year, we always had to amend the soil. Back in the day, it was always stable manure, cow manure, horse, chicken. That's all we had available to us. But when the synthetic fertilizers came, urea, I always tell people 10, 10, 10 is organic, because I'm getting all this organic or fertilizer now. And I get that question a lot in the classes. And we try to break it down, explain to them, if you can understand what fertilization means to the plant, then you can make a better decision whether you're going to be purely organic or you're going to use some kind of synthetic fertilizer. But the sustainable methods that I use is just what my mom taught me. I still use that. The fall of the year right now, we're growing all your winter crops, your greens, your cabbages, your things in that nature, mustard greens. These are things we traditionally grow in this area this time of year. But the purpose that's serving, we're going to eat some nice collard greens this time of year, but we're also replenishing the nutrients in the soil. My garden beds in my garden, I take this time of year to put those, take all my compost that I've been building all summer long. I'm adding that to my soil now because I'm actually getting ready for my spring garden. So we have to do that constantly here in the Low Country. But that's a practice that's always been around.
Definitely like to add to that too. I think the health of your soil and rebuilding your soil is highly important. So there's a few things I do. I'm a heavy mulcher, so I'll search Facebook for like free mulch. A lot of times people went out and get the guys that are cutting the oak trees on the side of the road and say, hey, are you gonna mulch that? And they go, yeah, we need somewhere to dump it, and they get it for free. So I'll find someone with that. They'll sell me a huge bag or so for like $5 a bag or so on. So I'm a heavy mulcher, and what the mulch ends up doing is it creates an atmosphere for bacteria and microbes to grow, and mycelia, it's like it's like a web-like fungi. I'm guessing, yeah, fungi that actually connects to roots, and so it'll absorb certain nutrients from the soil that and feed the plant. So with this heavy mulching and that mulch breaking down into soil, I also interplant certain other plants with others. So I plant legumes, which are nitrogen fixing plants. So most of our plants they absorb nitrogen, but the nitrogen is like, it's bonded in a way that the plants can't use it. It's not bioavailable. So you plant like gungo peas that we call in Jamaica, or black-eyed peas here, and so what that does, it creates these on the root systems, it has these little pockets that the bacteria kind of lives in, and that bacteria eats that nitrogen, turns it into ammonium, and then another bacteria eats that and turns it into nitrite and nitrate, and that's what the other plants surrounding it can absorb and actually grow greener leaves and grow bigger fruit, sweeter fruit, and so on. And then another thing that I'm practicing is this thing called Mexican sunflower, and it's invasive, but you just have to keep it in check. So it grows a lot. So you cut it back, and you just drop it. They call it chop and drop. So you cut it back, drop it, and it has as many nutrients as like chicken manure. So what it does, it creates even better environment for bacteria. It covers the soil, so it protects it from the sun leaching. And then I do the same thing with the mounds. I've killed so many avocado trees, not like researching, like the rains that we get here in Florida, elsewhere, like you drown them out. And so I have an avocado tree that is huge now. I planted it last year, and it's about almost 15, 20 feet tall, but it's on a mound, and it's in a place where the water runs off, but I also have heavy mulching around it. And then I have a banana pit. So a pit close by it where it's like 4 feet deep, about 4 feet wide, mounds up on the side. So it keeps the water and keeps the nutrients within that, so the other plants planted around it can their roots will grow deeper and stronger. They'll reach for that food and that sustenance, and it'll help everything else around it, rather than it leaching off into the next property or so on. So soil is keeping your soil healthy is extremely, extremely important. The other last thing that I do is, other than chop and drop and mulching, is worm farms. So I built a little worm farm, got red wrigglers, and continuously feed it, and then mulch like the oak trees. I never used to use the oak tree leaves and just had them sitting there. But if you go under the oak tree and you just dig the soil, it's rich and it's black. It's like, it's just strong, good stuff in it. So now I take those oak leaves, I put them in a basket, and I let that just sit for the whole, almost like a couple of weeks. I mix it as much as I can, and then I use that to amend the soil. So, and then there's other things you can look into, like azomite and rock dust and charcoal, like they call it activated charcoal or so on. Not activated charcoal, but I forgot what it's called. But it's a form of charcoal just broken down. It's biomaterial burnt in a certain way at a certain degree. Add that to your soil, and it amends it, makes it more powerful and more nutrient dense.
Thank you, Atiba. We a few months ago, back in July, I was in Georgetown in my ancestral home, and one of our science educators, she and 2 other women wrote and received a large grant, like $350,000, to do a project with kids relative to Gullah Geechee heritage. But one of the things that they were doing, and this is where I last saw Tim, as a matter of fact, they were doing hypo gardening, with the fish, and so the fish produced the nitrogen and so forth, and the hydroponic gardening, and the kids really, really got into it. I mean, they explained it. They had their tablets. They did scientific tablet, documentation and so forth. And I'm wondering if any of you are doing anything relative to hydroponics.
Yeah, so I don't personally do aquaponics or hydroponics, but we have people around us that do. So that's basically, at that point, not one person or one group can do everything. So the way we like to conduct ourselves is that, as Avengers, we all have our different storylines and ways that we go about doing things.
Right.
But when it's time to come together, we come together and we get the mission done. So,
Right.
yeah, so for the most part, we have the compost guy that takes care of the compost. He deals with the soil. Then we have the aquaponics lady, she takes care of that aspect. And then we teach through the history and the hands-on kind of training, what I'm saying, on the day-to-day basis that we're there.
Right.
And then on like at events and stuff like that, we just overall would do workshops pertaining to everything, what I'm saying, from each group or individuals that are doing that specific thing within the neighborhood.
Okay. So yeah, the aquaponics is water, but the hydroponics only uses fish. Is that, that's kind of the difference between the two.
No, aquaponics is the fish. The hydroponics is
the water.
Something else. That's like indoors. You have to what I'm saying? Like maybe it might be a room or a container or something like that. That's like basically, well, it depends on the person, the individuals, because sometimes most hydroponic systems are dealt with inside. You have to control the weather, so on and so forth. It's more chemical based. And then, there is towers that people do, outside, on the land to prevent from actually putting stuff in the ground. But aquaponics is with the fish and the nitrogen and all that other stuff.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. So what else do I have on here? I think I've kind of talked about most of my questions. Kind of want to open it up to the three of you. Is there anything you want to ask of the other or share any information that I haven't already asked? And it's a good time to do that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to see if I have any questions from the live feeds. Okay. So would anybody like to share something?
Yeah, David and Tim, we have to connect beyond this.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, man. The idea of just community and growing, and I have a lot to learn from each of you. I definitely want to do something where I'm creating an atmosphere for children to learn, for them to have, just the experience in their life. Because I believe you're changing lives working with children, with the youth. You know what I mean? Like they get to see that. They get to see you, someone that looks like them, appreciate the earth and organize in the way you're organizing and teach and so on. And that is going to affect them for the rest of their lives. So I'm here just teaching myself about the land and how to sustain and then how to build and create something out of that can assist people as well. And you're right there, hands-on. So I have we definitely have to connect and have a lot to learn from you. And Tim, as far as even the practices that Geechee Gullah folk, these indigenous peoples had, there's so much there to learn and to use and implement as well. So, Tim, for you, I have a question. What's something that is you don't see typically used that's part of the the Geechee Gullah tradition as far as growing, whether it's what to grow or how to grow it? What's one thing that you don't see that people know about or use that you use that you can share with us that can help us to grow food and better?
Well, one thing, and let me say this first. Jamaica, Florida, South Carolina, we're all connected. We're all the same people, and these techniques reach beyond. And that's one of my goals, is to get back to the motherland to see where all this originated, because we're still using the same techniques. What you said about the oak leaves, I've been using that because we've always used the leaves. And there's some that we don't use, but we actually used to have to go out in the swamp and get what we call swamp muck, which would be certain trees would grow in the swamp. When I was in the corporate world, I actually served the county of Georgetown as a mosquito control supervisor. So it was my job to hunt mosquitoes and figure out how to eliminate them. And at one time, just outside of Georgetown, there was a place where all the research was done for the world on mosquitoes. We actually had an area outside of McClellanville. We had predominant species in that one region. So the world used to come to Georgetown, or more or less Charleston County. They used to come to Charleston to learn how to treat and kill mosquitoes. So it's part of my job to find these. So if you called me from your side of the county and said, Tim, they're eating me alive, it was my job to go and find out where these mosquitoes were. And I was able to do that because I studied the habitat. And I knew that if I see sweet gum trees or red maples, I knew that that was going to be a low swamp area where water would accumulate and they would breed in that area. But those were the areas as a child or as a young man that we would be sent to in the woods to get the swamp muck. And all this muck was the vegetation had died down, and we would rake this rich vegetation up, put it in on a wagon or back of a truck, and we would put this in the fields to amend the soil. Same thing you're doing with the oak leaves. We'd always, where I see people burning the oak leaves, and in Georgetown, certainly, you know, we pay for the services. So you break it, you put it on the curb, the city will actually come and pick it up and take it to the landfill. And I see people they want a garden and they're giving away one of the best fertilizers. When I went fishing, if you needed worms, that's where you went. You went to those oak leaf piles, brushed that leaf, and there would be worms, and they're so big they got shoulders on them. That was the best bait to use, but that was also the best soil. What I'm seeing now, the biggest problem, it's not a problem, people that want to garden or want to plant, the timing of things. Every vegetable, every plant has got its own time. Onions. A guy called me years ago and said, Tim, can we grow Vidalia onions? Nice sweet onions. You grow them down in Orlando and Jacksonville. I mean, huge farms of sweet onions. But Vidalia is just a region in Georgia. And that thing is trademarked. That sweet candy taste onion is trademarked to that one particular region. And why does the onion take on that distinct candy taste? Because the soil in that region lacks a certain amount of sulfur that creates that taste. But that onion is grown all over the world. A yellow Grand X onion is grown all over the world. So I told him, hey, we get some seeds, we can grow it here. And we did it that year, and we grew onions. We had some as big as 5 pounds. They looked like softballs. They were sweet, but they did not have that distinct candy sweetness, but they were excellent onions. So now we grow onions in this area. Those are the things I try to help people with. Folks said, I've been growing onions all my life, but I never make an onion bulb. And first thing I'll ask them, well, what type of onion are you growing? Are you growing short day onion, intermediate day, or long day? And they will say, what are you talking about? I didn't know there was certain species or certain varieties. Mm-hmm. And then explaining those things. Well, if you want a bulb onion, if you're going to grow short day, think of when the days are shorter. And again, they don't know these things. I said, well, we're in the fall of the year, winter time, the days are shorter. So a short day onion needs to be in the ground during those short days. And then they will go to make seed when the earth warms up. The onion is trying to make seed, so it does nothing else but grow. That's all it knows how to do is grow. So those things I try to help people with is the timing. We're getting cool weather here. We probably get a frost tonight. You won't put sweet corn in the ground this time of year. But I actually get a lot of people don't know that they can't grow these things. And they look in these seed catalogs with all these different beautiful pictures, and they order every seed in the book and they plant them. And then they wonder why they don't get them. And another thing, I mean, we're blessed with every cabbage-eating insect in the world lives here in Georgetown. So knowing how to take care of those things, and yeah, you can take care of these things organically, by biological control, and what you said earlier about planting other plants, companion plants. Well, yeah, you can plant other plants. You can plant flowers in your garden to help with insects. I use very little to no pesticides in any of my gardens, and trying to show people that you can garden without using pesticides. If I've got 10 cabbage plants and I get a cabbage worm on one, I don't go out there and nuke the whole 10. I may forfeit that one. If he's only on that one and he's having a ball, well, hey, you have it. You eat that one. I still got 9 over here. So teaching tolerance, and everything is about tolerance, even weeding a garden. Hey, I've got a tolerance for weed. Like I said earlier, weed is just a plant out of place. So I don't go crazy when I see weeds, but when I'm growing in raised beds, I'm only trying to control the weeds in that bed. As far as my walking paths, hey, I'm going to use the lawnmower or weed eater to take care of that.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
I don't know if I answered your question, but
you got it in there. I got it. it. Thank you.
Great. Well, we have certainly covered a variety of things, and even though you guys are in different places, you share a lot of the same loves and interests. So I'm happy that we were able to bring, the three of you together to talk more and exchange more. I am really, I know this came up the other day. I was looking at something and I thought that it said that the plant Heliocresum is the same as life everlasting. And I'm trying to see if that's a fact or not. So that's a question for thought. And Tim, I'd love to talk to you more about that because, life everlasting is one of our traditional herbs in our area.
Yeah, and it is one that I have tried to cultivate the plant, and I'm going to do some more experiments with it. I know on Amazon you can buy seeds, but my concern is that the same plant that I've seen in South Carolina. I'm not sure, but I'm going to get some seeds off of native plants and see if I can cultivate some, just to see what it's doing. And you guys, one thing I want you, if you're not doing it, I'd encourage you to start looking at some other products, other crops. Got a gentleman I just met in my area is growing hibiscus plants in the hope of getting into that market. Every part of that plant is edible. I actually ate one of the pods, and it tastes like a native red sorrel that we used to go and harvest. It's a weed. It's an invasive weed. We would get it. It would come up in the pastures, and we would go out and get a bunch of it. And they used to dry it and use it like you would use lemon or salt taste to it. They would actually dry it and poultice that thing down and use it in some of the cooking. But that's what the hibiscus tasted like to me. But we did get some to harvest some seeds, and
we got seeds if you need it. We got edible hibiscus growing right now, and we got cranberry hibiscus growing right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got
we also got sorrel. We got sorrel out there too.
Okay.
Sarah seed, moringa. So
yeah. Same here.
Oh yeah. And see, all of those things are new to my area.
Yeah.
Sounds like a field trip.
Yes.
It's in order. It's in order for sure. And the hibiscus flowers are very beautiful. They're very beautiful.
Yeah, they are. And we did make some tea because he gave me some dried leaves. It made a nice tea. I almost put some rum on mine, but I opted not to. but I mean, it was a good, soothing tea that we made from it. So I like to see him. I hope that he can get in. There's no market as I know right now in my area, but folks down in Charleston, they're getting creative in a lot of things, microgreens, and there's actually a group down there that's doing the hydroponic, or whichever one is with just the water. They're doing collards, and they're producing enough to get to the market. So what I'm seeing in my area, the folks who are doing it, and even the kits that the kids made, Ramona,
Yes.
all they, my problem with those is not a problem, but they tend to just grow lettuce. There's nothing wrong with lettuce, especially if you want a nice hamburger, but it's not a lot of nutrients in a head of lettuce. And there's a big garden in Paulus Island, and they've created a system, and like David said, they're under a greenhouse, so it's sheltered. But all I see them growing is lettuce. They're producing a lot of lettuce, and they said they're a community garden. The only problem I got with that is, who are you feeding in this community with just lettuce? So I'd like to I do have a kit that the folks from USC gave me a kit. I didn't get a chance to put it into operation, but I'm going to do it next season. I'm going to try to see what other type of plants we can grow. I've seen similar systems where they grow zucchini, squash, and some other plants, but I'd like to see some more nutritious plants, something that could really help some people with this food shortage we have. And even with the food bank, they're getting stuff in these food packages that our folks have never seen. I mean, we cooked some lentil beans last week, and it came out of one of those food bank food boxes. And for the first time, I had never eaten it. And for the first time, I said, wow, I've been missing out. Very nutritious bean. So we're going to see if we can put some of those things in our garden. Fava beans is a new one that we're growing. One that I've never seen in this area. So we're playing around with different plants to add to the variety.
Okay. Well, we're coming at 7:15, and we're supposed to be ending 7:30. So a couple of things I wanted to share. I had also invited a young man, Dion. Dion is growing cotton, and he's here in the Fort Lauderdale area. And I met him at the flea market every Sunday. He sells cotton plants and other plants that he's growing, but he couldn't make it tonight. But I know that on December 2nd, we're going to have a conversation with him, because currently we are have an exhibition of John Jones' exhibit called The Color of Money. And I'm going to put this in there so you can see it. This is the flyer for it. It's with us through January 8th. So we're having a few events connected to it. What Mr. Jones does is he takes Confederate money, and back then there were small images of us in fields. So he actually he actually paints those images of us in various, field places and so forth. And the paintings are exquisite. They're large, they're beautiful. So if anyone's in the neighborhood of our library, we ask you to come by and see the exhibit. And go online, and you can see what kind of programs we're doing. A lot of them are available online. So I did want to, share that. And particularly because we know that money is also made up of cotton and linen, from what I recently learned. So again, it's growing, and it's a whole world out here that we haven't even looked at relative to things that we can grow and how we can sustain ourselves, particularly in these days and times, and what's happening in the world around us, whether it be in our community and now globally. It becomes important to learn some other ways of doing things. So if anybody would like to share some closing comments, we can do that. Otherwise, we can say goodnight, whatever you gentlemen prefer.
Definitely want to share that anyone watching this, live or the recorded version, what David said in the beginning is extremely important about YouTube. There's so many resources out there, and so much you can do to heal your body, and strengthen your mind, your spirit, affect every aspect of the self, And so if you see like hydroponic setups or so on, look at the PVC pipes. There are videos, DIYs, where you can build your own thing and figure it out yourself. If you're growing plants and trees and fruit trees, start learning about like the vitamins and for instance, I learned that iron is easily absorbed if you have vitamin C with it. So I started searching for plants that had both, and so I found this thing called Java plum that they use for all sorts of ailments all across the world, from China, Africa, India, everywhere. And it's a tree with these little purple plums, but it's good for everything. Antifungal, it's an antioxidant, helps to fight off, cancer, things of that nature. Last year I got sick, supposedly the thing that was going around. And because I knew about turmeric and I grew it myself, I took some manuka honey, I took some turmeric, some garlic, and some ginger that I grew as well. I crushed it all up, mixed it with manuka honey with cayenne pepper and black pepper. And turmeric has curcumin. Curcumin is more bioavailable if you put black pepper or cayenne pepper with it, which has pepperine, and so that affects your body. And I was better within 3 days. That with elderberry syrup. So it's they're life-saving things. Items and trees and plants out in nature, and you deserve to learn about it. You deserve to know about it and share it with your family, so that you can have, you can amend your lives and have better lives and take care of yourselves. So yeah, search YouTube and figure out how you can grow anything anywhere. You know what I mean? And you can follow me on Atiba's Garden on Instagram and My Mindful Garden on YouTube. I have a few videos up there on how to grow certain items, how to build certain items. And then there's things reflecting on like the spiritual and energetic principle of herbs and plants and colors and things of that nature. So so just start anywhere, but start.
Thank you so much, Atiba.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Someone else?
Yeah, I just want to say real fast, once again, salute to everybody on here that's doing the work. Going back a little bit to what the brother was saying pertaining to, men and women and the gender roles. For us, we seeing a lot of young men wanting to do this work. And I was gonna say this earlier, but it's at this point for us, it's like a not to take anything away from the sisters, but when they see us working, because it's dominantly men that are, out there, it's kind of like a manly thing, you know what I'm saying? You got to use the equipment, you picking up stuff, you moving stuff around, so on and so forth. You getting your hands dirty, you're sweaty, so we try to make it as far as like a healthy balance and everyone understanding their positions and stuff when it comes to that. But I would say for anybody that's listening, please stay aware of not only what's happening locally within your area, but also nationally and worldwide as well. There are a lot of things that are taking place right under people's noses, and not enough folks are paying attention to what's happening and to what's going on. And it is not a good thing. And a lot of people are going to be, out of water when they realize that this system do not care about you, and they not coming to save you either. You know what I'm saying? And for the religious folks, Jesus ain't coming either. I mean, I'm sorry, sadly to say, that man is not coming out of the sky to come save you. There's a verse that also states, my people will perish because of lack of knowledge. You know what I'm saying? And the more technology advances, it just seems like the more stupider people to become. You know what I mean? So we're not really advancing in anything. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, moving backwards. You know, but I would say learn to grow your own food, learn how to shoot a gun properly, learn how to, store food, begin to, if you can create your food pantry, begin to harbor seeds, learn to grow your food, because once again, there's some things that's going to be coming and not a lot of people are going to be able to survive it. Mental health is going to matter in that point. And right now, as we speak, they're building their underground bunkers. Kim Kardashian right now is on her second underground bunker. You know what I'm saying? This stuff is for real. Like, these people not playing with us. They beginning to separate themselves from society to begin with, and I know we don't have all the money in the world, to buy an underground bunker or to move to Mars or whatever the case may be. But yes, this thing is for real. Like, these people ain't spending millions and millions of dollars on these things for no reason. Obviously, something is going on that they are not telling us. You know what I'm saying? And it's not okay. Nothing is okay right now. You know what I'm saying? And we have to literally prepare. We have to prepare, and our people are not, focused. We are distracted. We're too busy with crate challenges. We're too busy about wanting to know what Lil Nas X did at some award show. Like, it BS, you know what I'm saying? And, coming as speaking as from a millennial viewpoint, I watch technology advance, you know what I'm saying, from the regular phones to the little thin razor phones and so on and so forth. And the way it's looking and the way it's going is not good at all. Like, they're tightening their grip every chance they get. And yeah, please, my people, wake the fuck up. Excuse my French. The shit is real out here. Listen, they ain't nobody coming. I'm telling you, you better learn how to do some things and take some survival classes or learn off this internet while we still have it, because these people are not playing around. They want this world a certain way, and they're doing it. They're proving their point every single time, and we have to be aware of it. Every chance we get, every waking moment before it's too late, before you have no time. So
thank you, David. Thank you so much, David. If you'd like, you could put your handle where your name is, so people can know how to reach you. Your handle for your organization, or whichever works for you.
Wait, through the chat or just say it?
See, if you go to your name, you can actually click those three dots, and it says rename. You should be able to rename, and you could put it right under your name.
Gotcha. I got it.
Okay. Tim, final words.
Yeah, again, I commend you, brothers, for doing what you're doing. It looked like we're all on the same mission to spread this knowledge and truth to our people. And that's certainly where I started my journey. I wanted to teach my people and have them get back. Provision gardens was what sustained us through slavery, after slavery. It was very important. And it's just as important now. Being able to feed yourself just to supplement your income, working in that corporate plantation, nothing has changed. You're going to be limited to what you do or how much you're going to make. You're not going to get rich working for somebody else. So that told me, I learned that maybe getting rich wasn't what I was intended to do. And spiritually, I know that God created abundance first. He made everything we needed in this world, and then he made us. So that tells me that abundance is already here for all of us to get what we need. He certainly made things sustainable. We ought to be able to survive. Not that you should go out here and live off the grid, but what happens if you have to do that. Could you survive? I certainly could, but I'm going to have to feed a lot of people around me, and I'm prepared to do that. Like David said, learn how to preserve. We're incorporating things like seed saving. That was one of the things I grew up with, but somehow we got away from it because seeds was so readily available. But I'm seeing those shortages now. Certainly, the pandemic created a situation where seeds were short. Some varieties that I grew up growing, I could not find seeds. But lucky for me, I managed to save some seeds from some of those varieties I like. And whether you plant them next season or not, you preserve them the right way, they will last. Canning, like I said earlier, yeah, we still preserve things in jars, but other easier techniques, get you that food processor where you can vacuum seal those bags. Well, you buy frozen vegetables, they're in a bag. Of course, they have a shelf life, but if you vacuum seal your own fruits and vegetables, they can last longer. Some could be dry stored, some certainly in that freezer that could last for years. We took some sweet potato out of the freezer. We misplaced it, and it had been in there for 2 seasons. But my wife had already made her pie batter. I vacuum sealed it, put it in the freezer. When I was in there rearranging some stuff, I came across it. She put it in a pie shell. How good was that sweet potato pie in September? That was one of the best pies I'd ever eaten. But it just goes to show that you can get a longer shelf life, learn to preserve some things on your own. And let's just take care of each other. If we're blessed with the knowledge, I can see you brothers are sharing that knowledge. And I know that you're a true gardener, farmer, whatever title you want to put on yourself. But one thing I know about gardeners and farmers, we share everything. And certainly there's no way I can eat everything I grow in my garden. I've always got way more than I could use. It's just that love of planting things and learning how things grow. That's what drives me. We're always doing some tests, and each year I try to do at least 2 new varieties of vegetable or fruit just to see how it grows. So when I come across a student or somebody asks the question, Tim, can we do this? Yes, you can. You can grow it. You may have some problems here, or you might want to do this, but at least I'm able to answer the question, not from a book, because everything you read in theory does not work in every location. But again, just commending you, brothers, for what you're doing. Thank you, Ramona, for giving me a chance to share and learn something from these brothers. I know I'm going to be in touch with them. I'm certainly going to share some of them seeds that they have. But hope to see you guys down the road one day.
Good. Thank you so much, Tim. So I would like to extend one more time my gratitude to my guest today, Brother Tim Chapman from Georgetown, South Carolina, my Gullah Geechee extended family, Brother Atiba Martin, by way of Orlando, by way of New York, by way of Jamaica, and finally, but not least of all, David Michael Roper, and from Miami, Overtown in particular, from the program that he works with, which is an amazing youth program in Miami. So on behalf of the African American Research Library and Cultural Center, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And please look up these people. They have a lot to offer and share, and we're probably going to have this conversation again in the future, a different format, but we've got some people that are interested, and this has been recorded, so you can find it on YouTube and on Facebook. Thank you so much, everyone. I bid you adieu. Be safe in your travels. Good night.
Good night. We gotta get one there on 6 Trunk too. Gotta get a farm up there, garden.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Man.
Take care now.
Take care, folks.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks.